Hello my dear students, this is Divya Beragi, your English teacher. Hope you all are well. Like the previous one, we are back with another video focusing on an important chapter. So let's start the discussion. Okay, so today we are going to start our chapter number 7 of English. Okay, so that is vertical descent. Vertical Descent, written by Jules Gabriel Verne. Okay, now so let's discuss about the writer. So Professor Lidenbrock, a famous geologist, wanted to travel to the center of the earth. So he took his nephew Axel to the volcano with 3 craters in Iceland. When they arrived at the volcano with their guide Hans, they realized that they must journey inside the crater in the middle to reach the center of the earth. Okay? Read on to find what happened. So Professor Lidenbrock, he was a famous geologist. What is geologist? Geologist means a scholar, student or student of the science dealing with the structure of the earth and the history of its information. So that is geologist. So he wanted to travel to the center of the earth. So he took his nephew with him. Okay, Axel to nephew is Axel. So he took his nephew with him to a volcano with 3 craters in Iceland. Now what is volcano? A mountain or hill, typically conical, having a crater or vent through which lava rocks, fragments, hot vapors have been erupted from the earth crust. That is volcano. Okay, so with 3 craters in Iceland. Craters, what is craters? Here it means the round and hollow mouths of volcanoes. So that is craters. Okay, so when they arrived at the volcano with their guidance, they realized that they must journey inside the crater in the middle to reach the center of the earth. Okay, now read on to find what happened. Okay, so let's come to our main part of the chapter. Okay, so now begun our real journey. So far I hadn't looked into the pit which we would have to enter, but now the supreme hour had arrived. So now the real journey started. So far he hadn't looked into the pit. What is pit? Pit, a large hole in the ground, that is pit, which we would have to enter, but now the supreme hour had arrived. There was a rock by the mouth of the crater chimney. Crater, a large bowl-shaped cavity, that is crater, and chimney, a vertical pipe. Okay, so there was a rock by the mouth of the crater chimney. I went over it and grazed into the bottomless pit. Now what is bottomless? Bottomless means very deep. So the pit, that is very deep. So he went over it and grazed into the bottomless pit. Okay. Now I could see steps along the straight walls of the chimney, but there were no rails. How will we climb down the chimney? I asked my uncle, if we miss one step, we will fall into the pit and break our necks. My hair stood on end with terror. So he said, what the boy said? He said to his uncle, I could see steps along the straight walls of the chimney, but there were no rails. How will we climb down the chimney? He asked to his uncle that, how will we climb down the chimney? Okay, if we miss one step, we'll fall into the pit and break our necks. So my hair stood on end with terror. So he was frightened by thinking all this, that if we miss one step, we'll fall into the pit. By thinking all that, he was very frightened. Okay, now we will not take the stairs, my uncle quietly answered. His uncle replied to him, But we will not take the stairs. Now I begin to grow hopeful. I began to grow hopeful. Surely my uncle had realized that the journey was dangerous and impossible. We would soon be returning home. So now the boy, he was to grow hopeful, and he was thinking about returning to his home back. Okay, now but my uncle had other plans. He uncoiled a thick 400 feet long rope and dropped half of it on the ground. Then he tied it to the rock and threw the other half into the pit. He wanted us to jump holding the rope. Now but his uncle had other plans. He uncoiled. Uncoiled means he straightened. So he uncoiled a thick 400 feet long rope and dropped half of it on the ground. Then what he did, he tied it to the rock and threw the half part of that rope into the pit. He wanted us to jump holding the rope. So now but how will we untie it once we reach the bottom? I asked, confused. So the boy was confused, and he asked his uncle that how will we untie it once we reach the bottom? Okay, now we will jump down holding both the halves of this rope. After we descend 200 feet, we will leave one end of it. Now here descent. What is descent? Descent, climbed out. Climb down, that is descent. So we will jump down holding both the halves of the rope. After we climb down 200 feet, we will leave one end of it. That will rise rapidly and push us further down, he explained. So his uncle explained this to the boy, to his nephew. Okay. Now we will continue this till we reach the bottom of the hole. And he said we will continue this process until we reach to the bottom of the hole. Okay. Now my heart sank. Now again he was frightened, and now what about the load? Hans asked. Now the guide, Hans. His name was Hans. So the guide asked, what about the load? I will divide our loads into 3 parts. Each of us will strap a part of our food provisions about his back. Okay. So I will divide our load into 3 parts. So they were discussing that we'll divide our load into 3 parts. Each of us will strap. Strap means tie. So each of us will tie a part of our food provisions. What is provisions? Means supplies. So food supplies upon his back. Okay. Now what about our clothes, the ladders, the ropes? I asked. They will go down by themselves. Uncle said they will go down by themselves. So now my uncle always had the simplest solutions for all problems. He tied the clothes and ladders firmly in one bundle and sent it trudging down the chimney, leading over the edge of the chimney till he lost sight of it. Now his uncle had the simplest solution for all the problems. So what he did, his uncle tied the clothes and ladders firmly in one bundle. So he tied all that things in one bundle and sent it trudging. Trudging means making dull and heavy sound. So that is trudging. The chimney, leaning over the edge of the chimney till the lost sight of. Lost sight of means couldn't see. So the edge of the chimney till he couldn't see of it. Now then he straightened up and turned around. It's our turn now, he said. Now his uncle said, it's our turn now to jump into that chimney. Numb with fear. Numb. What is numb? Numb means unable to feel anything. So he was unable to feel anything with fear. I jumped, clutching the door, and the boy, he jumped, clutching the door cord with one hand, and in the other hand I was holding a stick to get support from the wall. And in his other hand he was holding a stick with him to get support from the wall. Okay, what if the rock from which I was hanging gave away? Gave away means fell. Okay, now the others, however, were calm. Whenever one of the slippery steps shook under Hans' feet, he quickly said, "Attention," repeated my uncle. After half an hour, we were standing upon a rock that lay across the chimney from one side to another. I carefully looked over the edge of our narrow standing ground and observed that the bottom of the chimney was still invisible. So, half hour passed. So they were standing upon a rock that lay across the chimney from one side to the another. So he carefully looked over the edge of our narrow standing ground and observed that the bottom of the chimney was still invisible. So the bottom was still invisible. Now we descended another 200 feet in half an hour. I was growing hopeless. My uncle, however, was enthusiastically observing everything around. On one of our stops, he turned to me and said, "These rocks used to lie underwater." I ignored him, and so we went on. So the boy was growing hopeless, and his uncle was enthusiastically observing all the things which was happening around. And on one of our stops, he turned to his nephew, but his nephew ignored him. Okay, now there 3 more hours passed. I still could not see the bottom of the chimney, but when I raised my head, I could see that the wall of the chimney were drawing closer to each other. It was beginning to grow darker. So now 3 hours passed. Okay, so still the boy, he could not see the bottom of the chimney, but when he raised his head, he could see the wall of the chimney were drawing closer to each other. It was beginning to grow darker. So we are coming, the walls of the chimney were coming closer to each other. So it was beginning to grow darker. Okay, now just then I heard my uncle cry, "We have reached." Now his uncle said, "We have reached." "Where?" I asked. So the boy, he asked where. Okay, he asked to his uncle where. Now at the bottom of the perpendicular chimney, he answered, "There is a passage leading to the right. We'll go there tomorrow. Let's have our supper now and go to sleep." So now at the bottom of the perpendicular means almost vertical. So at the bottom of the perpendicular chimney, he answered. He replied to his nephew that at the bottom of the chimney we have reached. Okay. Now there is a passage leading to the right. So we will go there tomorrow, his uncle said to his nephew. Now I sighed with relief. There was still some light there. So he was in relief. There was still, because there was light. There was light. Now we opened our basket and ate a little. Now they opened their basket in that place and they ate, their food. Now then we went to sleep upon a bed of stones and rocks. Now they went for sleep on bed of stones and rocks. When I opened my eyes, I could see the Ursa Minor shining in the sky. Ursa Minor shining in the sky. Now, when the boy he opened his eyes, he could see the Ursa Minor. What is Ursa Minor? A group of stars in the northern hemisphere, consisting of the pole star. So that group of stars he could see there, saw there. Okay. Now it was a bright sparkling point of light at the extreme end of the gigantic 3,000 feet long chimney. Now it was bright sparkling. That group of stars was sparkling point of light at the end of the gigantic means a very huge size. Okay. Now a vast, long, 1,000 feet long chimney, now a vast telescope. Comforted at last, I feel fast asleep. Okay. Now the boy feel fast asleep. Okay. So students, we have completed our chapter. I hope you all enjoyed. Okay. Thank you.